Waking from his sleep, the gooner named Udo finds an arcana card marked, the Lovers. Puzzled, he turns to his father and asks if he put it there. But his dad just smiles brightly and declares that Udo has been chosen. He's now a candidate for the next Demon King. Still confused by his parents' strange excitement, Udo demands an explanation. His father finally confesses they've been working for demons. He goes on to say that back when he was unemployed, a demon offered him a job at a company run by demons, where his duty was to help them manage the human world. Thinking his father has lost it, Udo is stunned when his dad suddenly conjures fire with his bare hands, and his mom turns off the stove without even touching it. With a proud smile, she tells him it's time for him to transfer to Jinsi Golden Star Academy, the place where all Demon King candidates are sent. Accepting his new reality, Udo eagerly arrives at Jinsi Golden Star Academy, only to be met with cold stares and murmurs. He's the first human ever to attend Jinsi. Suddenly, a sleek limousine pulls up in front of him, and a rich brat steps out, making Udo freeze on the spot. Udo quickly realizes the guy is on a whole different level. But before he can react, another demon shows up and snaps at him for staring at Aspat. Once the demon named Gelt notices that Udo is the new transfer student, he mocks him, calling him a pig and laughing at how weak humans are. Before things can go any further, Udo decides to walk away, but stops the moment Gelt insults his parents. Annoyed, Udo fires back, saying it's always the guys with 3 inches who talk the loudest. Furious at the insult, Gelt launches a burst of magic straight at him. Udo freezes in fear, certain it's over, until a girl suddenly steps in and dispels Gelt's attack just in time. Offended by her interference, the demon curses at the girl named Lizel, calling her arrogant for rejecting Aspat's offer to make her the queen of the world. Lizel snaps back, asking why he's acting so fruity over Aspat. Annoyed, Gelt yells that Aspat is literally the heir of the Line family. But Lizel brushes him off, saying she only has business with Udo. Hearing that, Gelt bursts out angrily, shouting that he can't sense any mana or magic coming from Udo at all. Proof, he says, that Udo must have received the arcana of the Demon King by mistake. With a sigh, Lizel pushes Udo forward and quietly tells him that the arcana he holds is known as the Lover's Arcana. It will teach him the magic he needs without fail. Noticing how tense he is, Lizel calmly assures him that all he has to do is wish for a shield to protect his body. Suddenly, a voice echoes in Udo's mind, announcing that he has acquired defensive magic, as glowing magic circles appear before him, ones he's never seen before. Udo stares in disbelief, realizing he can actually understand them. Amused, Lizel playfully tells him that the voice he heard belongs to the arcana itself. But right now, Udo's mind isn't on that. He's far too distracted by the soft sensation pressed against his back. Before all his blood rushes south, Lizel snaps at Udo to focus. He needs to pour his mana into the magic circles only he can see. Meanwhile, Gelt stands there feeling completely third-wheeled. Irritated, Gelt hurls another blast of magic at Udo. Panicking, Udo shouts, "Magic barrier barricade." And to his surprise, it works. He blocks the attack. Relieved, he turns to Lizel and says they should get out of there. But she stops him with a smirk, saying it's time to move on to offensive magic. Letting out a sigh, Udo calls upon the arcana, pleading for offensive magic he can use to protect Lizel. The arcana immediately responds, granting him a spell called Great Blaze Tiger, which he unleashes, forcing Gelt back. Impressed by Udo's strength, Lizel smiles and introduces herself as a second-year student, saying it was a pleasure to meet him. But before Udo can reply, dizziness hits him, and he collapses, landing right on Lizel's soft pillows. A few hours later, Udo wakes up feeling dazed, wondering if he's in the school's infirmary. Just then, a soft feminine voice asks if he's awake. As his vision clears, he realizes it's Lizel, standing before him in her God-given suit. Flustered, Udo blurts out, asking why she isn't wearing anything. Lizel calmly explains that she was performing a recovery magic spell on him, and that it required direct skin contact. Still confused, Udo starts to ask what she means, but Lizel continues, saying that since he just awakened as a Demon King candidate, using ordinary magic could be harmful to his body. She goes on to explain that it's a type of magic called Healing Lovers, which lets her transfer her mana into his body simply by pressing her solid tankers against him. She adds that the stronger their bond becomes, the more powerful their magic will grow. Blushing furiously, Udo quickly changes the subject and asks, "What place is this?" Lizel smiles and explains that it's called the Lover's Team Antechamber. But he can also think of it as a palace. When she mentions that they're still inside the academy, Yuto looks confused. Lizel then clarifies that every Demon King candidate is granted their own antechamber, proudly adding that she's the one who designed this palace herself. After slipping back into her plot armor, Lizel calmly assures Yuto that she'll explain everything in more detail tomorrow. Information that will help him win the Demon King War. Swallowing hard, Yuto nervously says that whatever she just mentioned doesn't sound fun at all. Lizel nods, admitting he's right, and adds that she can't guarantee his safety, because soon, he'll be facing demons with powers beyond imagination. At that moment, Yuto realizes his status might go from Gunner to Goner real soon. But Lizel quickly reassures him that every Demon King candidate is granted cards to assist them. Then, right on cue, she looks at him earnestly and asks him to turn her into his card. Hearing her request, Yuto pauses to think. He remembers that Lizel once received an offer from a powerful demon like Aspat, and compared to someone like that, he feels like a total loser. But before he can say anything, Lizel smiles and tells him that he can become strong too, because she'll personally train him until he's worthy. Even though Yuto is clearly tempted by Lizel's curves, he tells her he can't accept her offer. He just wants to return to his peaceful human life. But Lizel reveals that it's already too late. He's stepped into the world of magic, and there's no turning back. Yuto insists he's nothing special, but Lizel firmly corrects him, saying he's loved by the arcana itself. A true genius who managed to master 2 spells right away. Before Yuto can say something dumb, Lizel silences him by pressing her Grand Canyons right against him, completely overwhelming his senses. Just then, 2 girls walk in and ask Lizel if she's finished with the ritual. Seeing them, Yuto's mind short-circuits and he comes to a single conclusion. He should start a religion that worships melons. Meanwhile, Lizel quickly scolds one of the girls, named Miyabi, for barging in without warning. But Miyabi playfully replies that she just couldn't wait any longer. With a bright smile, she introduces herself to Yuto, proudly revealing that she's a first-year student. Yuto's eyes immediately lock onto Miyabi's chest, realizing she's even more blessed than Lizel. Then, the second girl steps forward shyly, introducing herself as Rian, a second-year student. Noticing her gentle demeanor, Yuto can't help but think Rian resembles a small puppy. But before he can say anything, the overly enthusiastic Miyabi jumps in, urging him to hurry up and complete the card ritual. To convince him, Miyabi even allows Yuto to do a patch test, completely freezing his mind in the process. Still flustered, Yuto hesitantly admits that he doesn't know much about the war. Lizel sighs in frustration, complaining that if it weren't for these 2 troublemakers, she would have already completed the contract. Rian tears up, regretting her mistake, while Miyabi just laughs it off and urges Yuto to hurry up and make them his cards. Confused, Yuto asks if it's something like a master-slave system. Miyabi explains that he could call them his retainers, but if he prefers the word slave, she's totally fine with that and would do anything for him. Hearing such shameless words, Lizel immediately tries to scold Miyabi, but Miyabi argues back, saying that's exactly how they're supposed to serve Yuto anyway. Her senior, however, calls her far too vulgar and tells her to be more graceful when discussing such things. Ignoring the lecture, Miyabi simply shrugs and wraps herself around Yuto's arm, insisting that it would be much better if they just charmed him instead. But Lizel isn't having it. She tells Miyabi that her behavior is exactly why people don't trust her. And besides, Yuto isn't some gooner. Hearing that, Miyabi smirks, unbuttons her plot armor, and teasingly asks Yuto if what Lizel said is really true. Just as his filthy mind starts to waver, Yuto manages to pull himself together and tells Miyabi to give him some time. The bold girl is left speechless as Yuto continues, explaining that he still doesn't know much about the Academy or the Demon King War. Before making them his cards, Yuto realizes he needs to think carefully. He doesn't want to do anything that could negatively affect their lives. At that moment, Miyabi notices that Yuto is different from other men. With her usual cheerful grin, she tells him she's fine with a trial period, promising to convince him of her charm. Then, Rian steps forward and gently takes Yuto's hand, assuring him that he can take all the time he needs. But she wants him to know he can rely on her. Seeing her warm smile, Yuto can't help but think that Rian looks just like an angel. As the girls start to leave, Yuto suddenly stops them and asks Lizel why she chose him, a mere human, when she had offers from other Demon King candidates. In response, Lizel explains that her ancestors have always served the Lover's Arcana, but that's not the only reason. She says she also wishes to serve him by her own will. She continues, saying she admires how he stood up against injustice, even when facing someone far stronger. Feeling a bit uneasy with how close she's gotten, Udo hesitantly tells her that what she described sounds more like a weakness. But Liesl disagrees, firmly stating that she doesn't want a world ruled by fear and injustice. A ruler must carry love for his subjects. That's why the one who possesses the lover's arcana is destined to become the next demon king. With that said, the three demons tell Udo that their meeting was no coincidence. They were fated to find him, so they could place their hopes for a better future in his hands. The next morning, Udo's mother casually asks how life is going at Jinsei Academy. But Udo freezes. How is he supposed to explain that a bunch of demon girls are literally begging to have a reproduction practical exam with him? Changing the subject, Udo's father sighs and says he's been so worried about him that he hasn't even been able to play games lately. Hearing that, Udo starts to wonder if those rings didn't just make his parents look younger. Maybe they made them act younger too. His father then proudly says it's incredible that their son got into Jinsei Academy, a school that only accepts prodigies, elites, and nobles. Hearing that, Udo can't help but think that if that's true, Liesl's family probably owns their own private Epstein Island. As Udo gets ready to leave, his parents tell him they're already proud of him. He doesn't have to join the Demon King War if he doesn't want to. But once he steps outside, Udo realizes the truth. His parents clearly know how dangerous the battles for the Demon King candidacy are, and that's exactly why they've been so worried about him. Suddenly, a sleek Rolls-Royce pulls up in front of Udo. When the window rolls down, he's stunned to see Liesl sitting inside, calmly telling him that she's here to accompany him. Before he can react, the driver gently ushers him into the car. Feeling awkward, Udo apologizes for troubling her, but Liesl simply smiles and says she came on her own. She doesn't want him getting attacked. Hearing that, Udo grows uneasy, especially when she adds with a confident smile that she won't let anyone lay a finger on him. Feeling a bit down, Udo asks Liesl if she thinks it's lame for a woman to protect a man. But Liesl just replies that she's a feminist. She adds that since he's only just started learning magic, it's perfectly normal for him to need protection. And someday, he'll even surpass her. The thought of surpassing Liesl catches Udo off guard, and he shyly admits that it all feels too surreal. Liesl, however, calmly reminds him that this is his reality. After all, he even heard the Arcana's voice. When Udo casually mentions that it actually woke him up this morning, Liesl freezes for a moment before asking, completely stunned, if he's been using his Arcana as an alarm clock. Udo nervously explains that the Arcana acted on its own, which leaves the demon girl completely stunned. She can't believe how deeply his Arcana seems to adore him. Thinking she might be upset, Udo hesitantly asks if she's mad at him. But instead, Liesl just asks if she should be the one waking him up from now on. Before he can respond, the car comes to a stop, and they both step out. As they walk toward the school, Udo jokingly asks if she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Liesl calmly answers that it's fair to assume she comes from nobility. Still, she quickly adds that all the credit belongs to her ancestors. She hasn't achieved anything worthy herself yet. As Udo looks around, he notices how most of the students seem terrified of Liesl's presence. But then, she calmly tells him that soon, they'll fear him even more than they fear her. When they finally reach his classroom, Liesl stops and says this is as far as she can escort him. Udo thanks her and assures her he'll be fine. But before he can take another step, Liesl drops a bombshell, saying she'll now hand him over to his next attendant. In the blink of an eye, Udo's arm is suddenly trapped, squished between Miyabi's enormous bazookas. Before leaving, Liesl warns Udo to avoid unnecessary physical contact as much as possible. But the moment she says that, Miyabi immediately clings to him, insisting that it's crucial they make plenty of contact. After all, she needs to increase her chances of being chosen as Udo's retainer. Letting out a sigh, Liesl scolds Miyabi, reminding her that Udo needs to earn everyone's trust first. With that said, she turns and leaves, handing things over to Miyabi. As Udo steps into his classroom, every student's eyes lock onto him, staring like he's the eighth wonder of the world. It hits him right away that just being human is enough to make everyone hate him, but Miyabi quietly tells him not to let it bother him. Moments later, the teacher walks in and tells Udo to find his seat. Miyabi quickly whispers that this is Miss Taki, their homeroom teacher, famous for her strict attitude. As Udo looks around for an empty desk, Miss Taki lets out a cold scoff, saying it feels like a disgrace to have a human attending a prestigious academy like Jinsei. All of a sudden, Yudo hears whispers spreading around the classroom. Everyone's questioning whether it was some kind of mistake that allowed a human into an academy meant for Demon King candidates. Trying to stay calm, Yudo freezes when the cruel teacher smirks and says that just standing there like a loser will earn him a penalty. At that moment, the blackboard lights up and a magic formula appears on it. Miss Taki then orders Yudo to solve the formula, and if he does, she'll let him sit down. The room fills with murmurs again, students snickering and whispering about how a mere human could possibly solve a magic equation. Looking at the formula, Yudo quickly realizes that Miss Taki is deliberately trying to humiliate him. With no other option, he silently calls out to his arcana for help. Without warning, Yudo grabs the chalk and calmly tells Miss Taki that there are a few mistakes in her formula. Before she can respond, he goes on to explain that the equation she wrote is actually a formula for world destruction. Completely stunned, Miss Taki freezes. She realizes that if Yudo were to complete the formula, he'd be recognized as a scientific genius, so she quickly erases the entire board. Yudo then brings up his seat again, but before he can finish, a loud voice cuts through the room. A male student shouts that no one should be fooled by Yudo's little stunt, because no matter what, he's still just a human. Pointing straight at Yudo, the boy proudly introduces himself as the Baron of the Sunju family and vows to expose him as a fraud. Annoyed, Yudo narrows his eyes and asks with a smirk, "If I show you a few magic tricks, will you finally find me a seat?" Sunju accepts the challenge but insists on going first. He then performs a weak magic spell, so bad that even a human like Yudo can't help but feel disappointed. When it's finally Yudo's turn, Sunju sneers and mocks him, saying he'll probably fail miserably. Yudo pauses for a moment, debating whether to unleash his full power on this guy or hold back a little. In the end, he decides to use the same spell he cast yesterday when he met Guilt. The moment Yudo finishes the incantation, an overwhelming surge of power fills the room, leaving both Miss Taki and Sunju completely stunned by the sheer force of his magic. Sunju instantly starts regretting every decision that led him here, but it's already too late. Yu shouts, "Faga!" and the entire classroom explodes in a burst of raw power, completely obliterating everything inside. As the dust settles, Yu stares at the destruction in shock, realizing he's totally screwed. He looks to Miss Taki for help, but she's already pressed against the wall, trembling in fear. Meanwhile, Miyabi bursts out laughing, calling him a total show-off, while Yu spirals into panic, overthinking how he's definitely about to get suspended. Sure enough, moments later, he's summoned to the principal's office. Bracing himself for a serious scolding, Yu walks in, only to be completely thrown off when the principal, a massive muscular man, greets him with a calm, friendly smile.